Ladies and gentlemen, with that, please join me as I hand over the podium to Mr. Krishna Sudheendran, Scientist C, Deputy Director, Production and General Engineering Department, Bureau of Indian Standards. Ladies and gentlemen, please.
Good morning to everyone present here. Yep, good. It's truly an honor to join you all at the International Tooling Summit 2025. I would like to thank TAGMA India for inviting Bureau of Indian Standards to be part of this important gathering. As you all know, Bureau of Indian Standards is the national standards body of India. The standards which are being formulated with the support of the stakeholders like you, participating in the committees in the BIS and giving their expertise so that a national standard is formulated which is acceptable to the entire industry. So it is critical that Bureau of Indian Standards collaborate with stakeholders and especially associations such as TAGMA to make sure that the standards which are needed by the industries are timely formulated. The theme for this year, from capability to credibility, transforming Indian tool rooms. This speaks volumes. So credibility can be achieved by the way of standardization and conformity assessment. So the product being manufactured in the Indian market, they are capable, and as the earlier speakers have mentioned, we are in a position to place ourselves in the global marketplace. But how to ensure that we have the credibility along with it? Standardization and conformity assessment is integral part of ensuring the same. So, since most of you are in industries and are aware of standards somewhere or other, but I would like to touch upon what the standard basically means. Standards are essentially agreed frameworks, a document that defines the requirement for product, process, or services. So you must have noticed recently the standards are not only developed for a specific product, we are also developing standard for the processes as well as the services. And in BIS, we have recently constituted a separate department for developing service-related standards. So these standards, they bring uniformity, reduce ambiguity, and act as a common language between the manufacturer and the consumer. So standard is not specifically a product specification. That is an important part of it. But standard come in various other forms. It can be a material specification. It can be a standard which gives the design and tolerance of the product. And as you must all be aware, there are standards on safety, which will act as a backbone for the omnibus technical regulation on safety of machinery. So as I stated, standards comes in various types and forms. There are testing standards. And why are all these standards necessary for the industry? Because the market, both domestic as well as international, is no longer buying products. They are buying assurance. When your mold or jig that your manufacturing meets an Indian standard specification, it basically signals that it conforms to the qualities and requirement which has been set by the Indian industry. This not only builds buyer confidence, this reduces rejection rates and strengthens the reputation of the industry itself. But given that standards are important and BIS obviously plays the important part in formulating them. So what are the challenges being faced by BIS as well as the industry in formulation of these standards? So the most important challenge is the fragmented sector with many MSMEs who are yet to be aligned to these standards. So here the role not only comes of Bureau of Indian Standards as the national standards body, its associations such as TAGMA, their role is critical in disseminating the information to the respective stakeholder base. There may be clustered throughout the India. So what we suggest is that we collaborate and hold webinars, seminars, so that we can disseminate the information which is may not be percolating to the entire industry itself. Standard which is formulated and not being used is of no use. So to make sure that the standards and its reach is brought out to the entire industry, TAGMA and BIS may work in collaboration in ensuring the outreach programs. And this ties, so it's critical that the standards are formulated, are used by the industry. But what we have felt throughout our experience in interacting with various industries, what we have found that the standards which are being formulated is not actually representative of the Indian industry. So the standards, whenever they come into conformity assessment, that is the mandatory quality control order regime, what we feel that we receive input from the industry that certain requirements in the standard, maybe it's dimensions, size, varieties, testing, is not covered in the standard itself. So what I will request the stakeholders and the association is make sure that we rigorously formulate standard, review them, and make sure that the standard which is there, it reflects the current Indian market need. It shouldn't be a case that once the standard comes into the regime of mandatory certification, then industry realizes there are shortcomings with the standard. So timely working on the standard to make sure that not only the existing standards are revised in a timely manner and reflect the Indian industry, we have to assess in the growing market what are the gap areas, what are the standards which we require, which will help the industry in the long run. So to summarize, TAGMA and BIS TAGMA would play a vital role in bridging the gap between the industry and the national standards body like BIS. So to briefly touch upon how the standards are formulated. So some of you may be already be part of some or other committees in BIS or in some way have interacted with Bureau of Indian Standards, either through work in standards or through conformity assessment schemes. But those of you who are not aware, the standards, like I earlier mentioned, standards are not formulated in isolation by Bureau of Indian Standards. We are only the facilitator. The standard would be formulated when the stakeholders come to the platform which is being provided by BIS and give their expert input so that relevant standard can be formulated. So in BIS, there are 17 different departments, each formulating standard in their individual field. For example, chemical, food and agriculture, civil, mechanical, metallurgy, and so forth. So most of the standards which will be pertinent to the audience here are being formulated by Production and General Engineering Department, in which I am working. So this department has formulated standard to various tooling standards across 3 to 4 committees. So what is a committee? Committee is basically a composition of the relevant stakeholders, be it the manufacturer of that product, the user of the product, government bodies, regulator, such as DHI, DPIIT, who are part of this committee, and they come together and they make the standard specification and publish them as a national standard. So as I mentioned, in this system, for this system to work, it's essential that the stakeholders come together and contribute. But without the stakeholders, the standard will never be a representation of the that particular industry. So in BIS, we have various tooling committees. So there are committees on cutting tools, PGD 32. There are committees on hand tools, PGD 34. But I'll focus on the committees which are relevant to the audience here. That is PGD 04, which is Metal Forming Machine Sectional Committee. So the presses along with the tools, such as tools for molding and pressing, are covered within this committee. And the PGD 35, which is the Committee on Machine Tools, Holding Devices, and Related Equipment. This committee formulates standards related to jigs and fixtures. So there may be some standards such as, for example, IS 3748, which is on tool steel, which will be relevant to all of you. So this standard is formulated, since this is a raw material specification, this standard is formulated by metallurgical department of BIS. Why I'm explaining all this information is so that you appreciate the structure of BIS. Understanding the structure of BIS will help you in approaching the relevant department or committee with your proposal. With your proposal maybe in form for a formulation of a new standard, or the proposal maybe for a formulation of a revision of existing specification, where you feel that it requires some revision, modifications. So in the, like I mentioned, I don't have the time to delve deep into various tools, various portals, online information which BIS provides, which many of you may not be aware of. Understanding this portal is critical because a lot of information is right there in our BIS website. So you'll be able to find the standards which are being developed and contribute directly, contact the relevant department and give the information, either passively through comments. You can send a mail to us, comment through our BIS portal, or actively take part in the committee in form of a technical committee member. So I invite all of you to please go through the website, and if you have any doubts, I'm here. We like to conduct a future program where we will focus on specific aspects which the industry needs, which industry requires from BIS. We'll focus on that so that we can have detailed sessions dedicated to it. So in terms of in conformity assessment regime, in tooling, there aren't many quality control order. There is a one quality control order which deals with the round punches. Apart from the most of the other tools are not covered under scheme 1, the product certification scheme, the ISI mark scheme of BIS. So there is a new scheme which has come forth, that is the omnibus technical regulation on safety of machinery, which is going to be implemented from next year. So I understand whenever a new regulation comes, government introduces a new regulation, there are a lot of questions. There are a lot of queries with respect to how it impacts the industries. And always during the initial phase, there may be some inertia with respect to the Indian industry in conforming to those requirements. So what I will just suggest, because there is time for the implementation, I would suggest the members of the association and all the participants for whom it may be relevant, that you start working on it. Read the document, read the conformity assessment scheme, and you start the application process. Because once you start, with time, everything gets sorted out. But the problem would be if you wait till the last moment, whatever feedback you give in the terms of standards, there will not be enough time to incorporate those into the standards. So I will encourage all the parties who are subject to this OTR, they start approaching the BIS so that the ball gets rolling in terms of their application process. So we, like I said, we may have a separate session for this, because this is a big subject in itself on safety of machinery. So moving forward, so what we require from BIS, as well as what we require from BIS and what we require from the industry at large, is that, summarizing my earlier points, standards are critical in the quality infrastructure, right? Quality ecosystem. There is no developed nation, there is no developed manufacturing country who does not have a robust standardization system also. So development and growth in the industry is always in parallel with the development of standards. So I hope that industry approach BIS and take more active part in identifying what are the Indian standard which requires to be formulated, which requires to be revised, and actively participate in this Indian standard. And as well as I'll encourage the members to leverage the BIS portals so that they are aware of all the information which is being disseminated, as well as they contribute through the commenting platform right there in the portal. So And to prepare for the regulatory requirements, you should start the process and align your process in advance for upcoming omnibus technical regulation. So I will conclude with a particular statement which says that quality is never an accident. It is always the result of an intelligent effort. Therefore, standards are that intelligent effort being made collectively by the industry. As we gather here at the International Tool Summit 2025, let us commit to making Indian tool not just capable, but unquestionably credible on the world stage. BIS stands ready to work with TAGMA and all the stakeholders to make this vision a reality. Thank you, and I look forward to engaging with many of you during the summit. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing all of those wonderful insights with us.